cleverly crafted in Gaza's Derot. There's a much more gamey element in Prison Valley. So we're getting used to a very complex logic of navigation, and Alma is a sort of back to basics. And I thought that was very interesting because my first thought was, well, if Upian comes back to basics, it means that, you know, we probably have reached a sort of saturation level of, you know, we can do more, we can do the app, we can, you know, name it, and then we Google about it, and then we Twitter about it, and then, you know, and actually maybe sometimes, you know, we can really think of interaction as something very subtle, which is as subtle as, you know, touching the face of a woman, which is very near to you emotionally, you know, by the time she goes into such a dramatic confession. And even just that, just touching that face and saying, yes, actually, I don't want to, I cannot cope with the glance of this person at this moment. I prefer to go to something more neutral than her eyes looking at me. Just that, there is very little interaction. And yet, it's such an important one, because I think it's the one that we use every single day in our life when we decide where to focus our attention and how much we can take. And so I thought it was extremely subtle and interesting, and maybe very inspirational as well for people in this room to, you know, think that interaction has degrees, has levels, and that there is not one formula, but there are levels of interaction which fit with specific projects. And
the idea here was to, it's a very strong story, and what we wanted to do was to be able to recreate throughout interactivity what you actually do when you are speaking to someone. Like you're in a coffee, you're speaking to a friend or somebody you know, and he's telling you about this really strong story of his, and part of the time you're focused on his face, and the rest of the time you're trying to empathize with him, and while empathizing you are imagining what it can be like to be him, and your imaginations just go somewhere else. And the idea with Alma was to create exactly the same emotion. We called this the second level the evocative level, because never in the whole 40 minutes you have illustrations of what she's talking about. The idea was always to be evocative about her feeling, but on the other side you couldn't actually have that on any linear distribution. We made a TV movie, and you cannot create the same sensation where every viewer has a different path, although it's the same story and it's a linear story.
Yeah, the story is unique, you know, because I mean it's unique in the sense that it's unique as a story, but also it's a one track of video and audio. So you're not interfering with the narrative itself, but what you're interfering is your freedom as a viewer to be listening to this, and to which level. With this, your level of engagement with this person is what you are deciding by a simple touch. And I think this is something you can only experience, so I really hope you're going to download Alma on your iPad, because it is a private experience, I feel. And you know, if someone else goes up and down for you, it doesn't mean anything, because that's not your choice, and that is a choice that is somehow very intimate. I think that's why it works.
Yeah, and the touch, actually, the distance you have with the iPad is the right one. Like the intimacy it creates between you and this character, who is a very beautiful woman. She's young, she has this horrible story, and she killed people, and she's a monster as well as a victim. So you never, when you're interacting with her, you never can decide which one she is, which is the interesting part of the documentary.
So I think this is question time, and it's question for you know, in general, for the whole of afternoon, or maybe the whole day if you want to. And because it's not such a big space, maybe we can throw questions around, and if someone